the land that was sunk into existence, ancient Australia and Lemuria. What if traces of Lemuria still exist in Australia, not in obvious ruins, not beneath the ocean, but hidden in plain sight among the redstone formations of the Kimberley? While living and working there, I encountered places so unusual that even today I struggle to explain them. A landscape in northwestern Australia that felt so alive and aware. Rock formations that resonated like bells. Sacred springs unlike anywhere else I have experienced. And eventually, the words of an Aboriginal elder who spoke of ancestors singing the land into existence. Welcome to part 2. What if traces of an ancient world still exist in one of the most remote and beautiful regions of Australia, preserved within rock formations that seem to carry the memory of magnificent architecture and a sacred resonance so striking that even our ordinary senses struggle to dismiss it? Today, I invite you on a journey into the Kimberley, a land of turquoise thermal springs, dreamy white sand, pristine beaches, oceans, sacred waterholes, ancient plateau mountains, mysterious red glowing stone formations, and a frequency unlike anywhere else I have experienced. During my time living in this extraordinary landscape, I began noticing remarkable similarities between the descriptions of Lemuria and what I was encountering in that wild land. Here are my observations, experiences, and a growing feeling that this land remembers something ancient. A memory carried in the rocks, the water, the silence in the songlines. I enter this story with respect, with gratitude, with love for that land. What I am about to share comes from direct personal experience. This land is deeply sacred to its original people, and I am aware of only a few of the reasons why. Those I am aware of, I will share with great respect for the culture and custodianship of those who have belonged to this country since time beyond memory. I arrived in Kununurra in the East Kimberley for work. The drive from Broome is over 1,000 kilometers, and somewhere around the halfway point, something shifted. The landscapes began to change into something I had never seen before. Majestic plateau formations, red earth so vivid it seemed to pulse, families of baobab trees, grandmother and grandfather trees, standing with their young in small circles, like tribes, like families holding council. Whole natural plantations of yellow-flowered cotton trees. Even the gum trees were different here. Different color, different feeling, more vivid somehow, more present, despite the deep dryness of the season. The land was announcing itself before I had even arrived. We pulled into the caravan park where we would make our temporary home. I stepped out of the car, touched the ground, breathed in the air, and stopped. It was love at first sight. Immediate, complete, unmistakable. All around me, extraordinary red rock formations rose against the sky, so shaped, so structured, so deliberate in their geometry that my first thought was that they looked almost like columns, almost like something built. Just meters from our site sat the boundary of a small national park called Mirima. And here is something I have never forgotten. Mirima, in my Serbian language, means it has a peace. Quite literally, peace. If any place on earth has earned that word, it is this one. As soon as we had the basics set up, I ran straight into the park, moving among gum trees that bent toward me in almost mosaic colors, soft, luminous, gentle. I felt them saying hello. The tall, dry grasses, double my height, leaned in the same way. The land was aware of me. I was aware of it. Something was already in conversation. Then I came to a gap in the red rock formation, an entrance. I stopped. I knocked with my heart and asked permission to enter. I felt immediately and without question that I was standing at the threshold of something very old, very sacred, and very deliberate. So I entered. Inside was a natural red rock amphitheater. I stood there and simply stared into the beauty, into the magnificence, into my own disbelief. And beneath the disbelief, something quieter and more certain, a feeling of having come home, of knowing this place, of having spent time here once long ago, in some life or some world I could no longer fully see, but could still unmistakably feel. I cannot explain it. I am not trying to prove it. I am only telling you what was true. One of the first things I noticed was the silence. The caravan park sat just 100 meters away, busy, full of life, high season activity. And yet, the moment you crossed an invisible line into Mirima, it was as though a curtain fell, a veil, a threshold between one world and another. On one side, the ordinary. On the other, complete silence. Not quiet. Silence. The kind that has age and weight and presence. The kind that asks something of you. It was early in the dry season, and water was still present. A small waterfall, adding its voice gently to the sacredness of it all. I walked deeper in, and with every step, my sense of wonder deepened. It felt like I had entered a different density, a different dimension, like time had stopped here, very deliberately, a very long time ago. The dome-like rock formations rose around me. Later, I would come to think of them as resonators, natural chambers of extraordinary acoustic precision. I tested them myself. I touched them, played with sound around them, and felt them vibrate almost like bells. The circles, the acoustics, the quality of the field among them, too considered, somehow, to be entirely random. I leaned toward the idea that something ancient and intelligent had a hand in shaping this. I say that carefully, without sensationalism, simply as an honest report of what I felt and observed across many visits. Because I did return, again and again, and each time the place revealed more. I saw things not of this dimension. I heard sounds in unusual moments that had no ordinary explanation. The veil between worlds is genuinely thin there. The dimensions seem to lean toward each other, to become permeable for those who arrive quietly, with attention and with respect. Sometimes I think those ancient worlds are not gone. I think they are still alive, functioning, present, intact, simply existing at a different density, occupying the same coordinates as this one, but vibrating beyond the reach of our ordinary senses. Consider this. Human eyes can perceive approximately 0.0035% of the full electromagnetic spectrum. That is not a spiritual claim, that is physics. What lies beyond that narrow band of visible light is not empty, it is full. Radio waves, infrared, ultraviolet, and frequencies we do not yet have instruments refined enough to measure. Reality is almost entirely invisible to us, not because it isn't there, but because we do not have capacity to see most of it. So when I stood in that red rock amphitheater and felt the presence of another time, another culture, another way of living, pressing gently through the air toward me, I do not think I was imagining it. I think I was catching a signal from something preserved, something that exists completely in a density just beyond our visual range, at the same location, in the same sacred ground. Not gone, just hidden, waiting perhaps for enough of us to become quiet enough to remember how to look. My job brought me to a sandalwood plantation. Long days, sometimes 10 or 11 hours, often alone in the bush among freshly cut sandalwood trees. You may know that sandalwood is one of the most sacred trees on earth. Ancient traditions reserve it for their most sacred rituals and ceremonies. I was working with Indian sandalwood, which surprisingly thrives there. There is also Australian sandalwood, which carries something even deeper, an ancient, dry, resinous sweetness unlike anything else. In the Kimberley heat, the essential oils of the sandalwood would merge with the aromas of the native plants and trees around me, and together they would create something extraordinary. A natural, altered state, not dramatic, not disorienting, gentle, expansive, opening, and the longer I worked in that landscape, the more it grew. Some grace came upon me, my senses expanded. I heard more, I saw more, and most importantly, I felt more. I would come home after those long days absolutely glowing, charged, at peace, as though I had just completed a yoga retreat rather than a full day of physical work in 40-degree heat. On weekends we explored. Kununurra is surrounded by waterholes and waterfalls. In the wet season, the landscape transforms, water appearing from the hills in cascades of extraordinary beauty. The sky above the town is one of the most electrically active in Australia, producing more lightning strikes than almost anywhere else on the continent. On some evenings we would watch for an hour or two as the sky put on a light show of such scale and drama that it felt less like weather and more like ceremony. And then there was Zebedee Springs, inside the wilderness of El Castro. Warm thermal water at 35 degrees, turquoise and green pools, natural cascades acting as spa jets, the softest moss beneath bare feet, red rock walls rising above, palm trees swaying. It became my favorite place in the world. I say that simply and completely. And it was here, lying in that warm water, that the impressions first came clearly. Visions. A persistent quiet certainty that this land is not only what it appears to be, that something much older, much more alive, much more intentional is woven into it. I began to look more carefully at the formations around Kununurra. The more I looked, the more I saw shapes that felt deliberate, structures that seemed to carry the memory of architecture. One formation in particular stopped me completely, a rock in the precise shape of a crocodile, not approximately, precisely. Legs, claws, teeth, eyes, tail, every detail present, sitting atop a waterfall surrounded by other remarkable structures, overlooking a sacred swim hole. I would sit on it often and simply be there. One day, sitting on its back, I found myself looking at a face in the rock nearby. A face that could have been Mayan, could have been Egyptian, something ancient and deliberate, gazing back across an unimaginable distance of time. It simply hit me. There is more here than meets the eye. The hills around Kununurra added to this feeling. Driving in from Broome, certain formations rise in groups of 3 and 4 in shapes that unmistakably resemble pyramids. I am not claiming they are pyramids. I am telling you what I saw. And the dome formations of Mirima, those resonating chambers I had already tested with sound and touch, reminded me of something like Angkor Wat or the great temple complexes of India, places where beauty and function are inseparable, where the geometry itself elevates consciousness, sharpens feeling, deepens the capacity for understanding and respect. Sacred architecture, whether ancient Cambodia or ancient Kimberley, does something to us. It reminds us of something we almost know. And driving through the wider Kimberley, from El Castro toward the Dampier Peninsula coast, there are kilometers and kilometers of plateau mountains, a whole forest of them. I worked with stumps for a season, photographing tens of thousands of them. And when I look at those plateaus, I find myself thinking about the theory held by some researchers and many observers that these formations may be the petrified remnants of an ancient forest of extraordinary scale. Giant trees, long since turned to stone, their stumps still standing across the landscape in silent abundance. Whether that is literally true or not, something in me recognizes the possibility immediately. This land feels like a place where things of great age and great scale once existed, and the memory of them has not entirely left. Beneath everything I have described, the silence, the resonance, the visions, the feeling of ancient presence, there is a geological reality worth understanding. The Kimberley is one of the most mineralogically extraordinary regions on Earth. The East Kimberley was home to the Argyle diamond mine, for decades the world's primary source of rare natural pink diamonds. The Ellendale field produced exceptional fancy yellow diamonds. Across the wider region, the ground holds vast stretches of quartzite and quartz-rich outcrops, high-purity quartz deposits, gold-bearing quartz veins, garnets, andalusite, amethyst, and unique to this land, zebra rock, found near Lake Argyle, with its striking alternating bands of quartz and iron minerals, found nowhere else on Earth. Quartz is piezoelectric. It generates an electric charge under pressure and responds to electromagnetic fields. High concentrations of quartz in the ground create measurable effects on the electromagnetic environment above it. That is established physics. This extraordinary mineral richness creates a field of unusual potency, a natural amplifier, and that this is part of why the Kimberley feels the way it feels, why the silence has weight, why the dome formations resonate when you touch them, why the senses sharpen and something in the mind opens more easily here than almost anywhere else I have been. This energetic potency creates the conditions for what I can only describe as portals, doorways of perception toward what I understand as Lemurian lore, the New Earth, and the 369 timeline that runs through my work with Nikola Tesla's consciousness. I believe these are not separate things, but different names for one underlying reality, a timeline based on symbiosis, on life in genuine support of life, on the remembering of a more whole way of being on Earth. Australia plays a particular role in this for several reasons. Its wilderness is vast and largely pristine. Its ancient geology holds memory in ways that younger, more disturbed landscapes cannot. And most importantly, its indigenous people have never stopped living and telling the story. Through their songlines, their ceremonies, their law, their relationship with country, they have preserved the Lemurian memory not as archive, but as living practice, not stored away somewhere, breathed, walked, sung daily. That to me is the most extraordinary thing of all. I was so moved by what I was experiencing that I wanted to create videos about this beautiful land. I posted in Slovenian on my Facebook, looking for someone to help with editing. Someone who loved nature, who had an eye for beauty, who would understand what I was trying to say. The first place I wanted to film was Molly Springs. A woman, a visual artist named Anna, responded. She didn't know I was in Australia. When I told her, she said, "Oh, I was just there a few years ago." "Where did you go?" I asked. She said she started in Melbourne, traveled to Darwin, and then stopped in Kununurra and stayed for months. Couldn't bring herself to leave. We both went silent for a bit. That same Kununurra I was at of all places. Coincidence, right? Or invisible hand guiding and connecting us in such a synchronistic precision across vast distances, unbounded time and space. I asked her, "Did you visit Molly Springs?" It was one of her favorite places in all of Australia. I had always sensed that Molly Springs was a feminine place. Something in the quality of it, the healing, the intimacy, the particular quality of what happened there. Things I will not describe in full because some experiences are sacred in their privacy and some things need to be felt rather than told. I had never been able to confirm this feeling from outside myself. Anna told me she had stayed with local indigenous elders, the guardians of the land, and that the women, the original custodians of that country, had told her directly. This was always a female sacred site. I had felt it without knowing. The land had confirmed it through a woman from Slovenia, found through a post written in Slovenian, who had been drawn to the same tiny little known waterhole on the other side of the world. Some things cannot be arranged by coincidence. The longer I stayed in the Kimberley, the clearer something became. Not through reading, not through research, through direct experience, through expanded senses, through weeks of sandalwood-scented days and thermal spring weekends and lightning storms and silence behind invisible curtains. I came to believe that this land once held a civilization, something alive and vibrant and advanced, not in the technological sense we use that word today, but advanced in the ways that matter most. A people who lived in genuine harmony with the land, who understood the intelligence of nature, whose intellect and heart work together, who knew things we have forgotten, and whose memory is stored, I believe this fully, in the rock itself, in the water, in the shapes the land has held for millions of years. Whether we call it Lemuria or not, I cannot say with certainty. Perhaps it was something we do not yet have a name for, but something existed here, something that left its signature in the geometry of these formations, in the feeling of sacred sites that indigenous custodians have protected across thousands of years, in the visions that come to those who arrive quietly and ask permission before they enter. When I imagine Lemuria, I imagine abundance of water, warm springs, pristine pools, cascades, the kind of lush, sacred beauty I found at Zebedee Springs. I imagine nature and its inhabitants working together in genuine symbiosis, not nature as resource, but nature as relative, as partner, as the very fabric of daily life. I found my little piece of that in Australia, and my feeling tells me the Kimberley holds much more of it than I was able to see with senses I have available. And then I found the words of Bill Yidamduma Harney. Uncle Bill is a Wardaman elder, respected lawman, knowledgeable keeper of deep lore, artist and a man of light and playful spirit. He was born and lives just across the border in the Northern Territory, a matter of tens of kilometers from the Kimberley country I am writing about. His people have belonged to this land since time beyond reckoning, and his words, when I read them, opened something in me that had been waiting to open. He speaks of the creation time, Bua Raja, when the great spiritual ancestors sang the land and all of life into being, not built it, not made it, sang it. 3 major ancestors sang the world into being. Before creation, he says, there was only bare land. The ancestors created not only the landscape, but language, ceremony, medicine, law, animals, plants, and songlines. The songs became the map of the country, and that map has never stopped being sung. In Wardaman understanding, song, land, law, stars, people, and memory are not separate things. They are all part of one living reality. The land exists physically, yes, but it is also continually maintained through relationship, through story, through ceremony, through song. And perhaps most beautifully of all, Uncle Bill says, we're linked in together, the rock paintings and trees and the stars and everything all connected together. This was the confirmation I had been waiting for, not proof in the scientific sense, something deeper than that. The recognition that what I had been sensing in the land, in the rocks, in the water, in the silence of Mirima, and the warmth of Zebedee Springs, had been known and spoken and sung by someone who belongs to that country, that there is a spirit behind the creation of these places, that the great ancestors who shaped this land with love and precision and sacred intention are still present, patient, waiting for this era of forgetting to pass, waiting for us to reach toward them again, so that they can reach toward us, and we can begin once more to co-create on the same principles: love, symbiosis, beauty, sacred geometry, mutual respect for life. Sitting in places like Molly Springs, I could sense their presence, those great creative spirits whose memory the rock still holds. Every year, Antarctic whales pass the shores of southwestern Australia, where I now live. Every year, we go to meet them, at sacred sites along the coast, at quiet places by the water where the meeting feels right. And every year, they bring with them something I can only describe as the song of the Kimberley. Traces of those northern waters, those ancient coasts, carried south in their bodies and their sound, exchanging information with another place of significantly preserved old memories, Antarctica. Whales communicate across thousands of kilometers. That is not poetic. It is documented fact. Their song travels through the ocean in ways we are only beginning to understand. And to me, these great patient animals, swimming their ancient roots with their young ones beside them, represents something the Lemurian framework understands naturally, that every creature carries purpose beyond the biological, that the whales are not simply migrating, they are connecting. Antarctica to the southwest coast to the Kimberley and back, tracing and retracing lines through the water that keep something alive, keep something remembered. This to me is Lemurian lore in living practice, not ancient history, present, breathing, singing right now, just offshore. One Saturday, we drove to Zebedee Springs with my work crew, a jolly, mostly Irish and French forestry team. Wonderful people, loud, funny, always talking, never quiet, which in a good way made every car journey an event. These are people who work hard and play hard and fill every space they're in with life and noise and laughter. We entered the wilderness park and drove underneath the Plateau Mountains, and everyone went silent. For 15 minutes, not a word, just the road and the land and those ancient formations rising on either side of us. In all my time in the forestry industry, I had never known that crew to be quiet. There is no in-between for people like that. There is working or there is talking, never silence. The land silenced them, without asking, without explanation. We all felt it. Nobody needed to say what it was. Indigenous oral traditions across the Pacific carry stories of lands swallowed by the sea, coastlines, islands, whole territories that disappeared beneath the water in times long past. These are among the oldest continuous oral histories on Earth, and researchers are increasingly finding geological evidence that supports them. It has always struck me that the ocean between these ancient lands is called the Pacific, from the Latin Pacificus, meaning peaceful, peaceful ocean. And on the other side of the world sits the Atlantic, named for Atlantis, whether by memory or by intuition. Two oceans, two names, two civilizational principles perhaps, that have always existed in tension, the symbiotic and the extractive, the Lemurian and the Atlantean, the Pacific and the consuming. We see the Atlantean principle operating clearly in our world today, in the buying of sacred coastlines of Albania, for instance, to build private resorts, in the hoarding of resources, in the reduction of ancient living cultures to tourist attractions. It is a copy of a copy of a copy of something that was once, in its own way, more fully realized. What remains is the impulse without the intelligence, the acquisition without the understanding of what is truly valuable. But the Lemurian memory has not been erased. It is stored in the rock. It is sung in the songlines. It is felt by those who arrive quietly at places like Mirima and Molly Springs and Zebedee Spring. Something remarkable exists in the Kimberley, something old and alive and patient and sacred, whether we call it Lemuria or Buwaraja or simply the memory of a better way of being on earth. It is there. It can be felt. It responds to those who come with open hearts and quiet minds. The Plateau Mountains stand. The thermal waters flow. The domes of Mirima still resonate when you touch them. The Kimberley is a place of memory, not metaphorically, literally. The codes are written here, in the sun, in the water, in the rocks, in the trees. The frequency of ancient times moves through this land so clearly that if you are quiet enough, you can feel it passing through you. If you are ever lucky enough to walk those lands, pay attention. Something is waiting to be remembered, and Uncle Bill's ancestors are still singing. And perhaps there is another reason these coastlines have remained so pristine. The Kimberley is home to the mighty saltwater crocodile, along with its freshwater cousin. Magnificent creatures, ancient creatures, true guardians of these waters. Knowing the extraordinary beauty of this coastline, I sometimes find myself smiling at the thought that if these rivers, estuaries, and beaches were not inhabited by some of the largest crocodiles on Earth, they might already be lined with resorts and hotels. Instead, much of this country remains remarkably wild, untamed, preserved. The crocodiles do not care about our plans, our investments, or our developments. They simply continue being what they have always been, and perhaps in their own way, they help protect something precious. And perhaps this is why conversations like this matter. Not because we need to prove the existence of Lemuria, not because we need to agree on every interpretation, but because places like the Kimberley are real, the rivers are real, the sacred sites are real, the stories are real, and many of them are under increasing pressure. The Fitzroy River, often described as the lifeblood of the Kimberley, faces ongoing concerns relating to large-scale development, water extraction, and the expansion of industries such as fracking and intensive agriculture. Local communities, traditional custodians, and many others have raised questions about what may be lost if these landscapes are treated only as resources. Australia has also witnessed the destruction of sacred sites through mining and industrial development. Too often, decisions are made before people fully understand what these places are, what they represent, and why they matter. Perhaps that is the deeper question. What is a sacred site? Is it simply a location, a cultural monument, a geological formation, or is it something more? In part 3, we will continue our journey into ancient Australia and explore an important question. What are sacred sites, and why have they mattered to human beings across thousands of years? I share all of this with great respect for the original custodians of this land and their culture. I have no desire to overwrite any narrative that belongs to them. This is simply my own experience, my own observation, my own felt sense, offered honestly, held lightly, and open to being wrong in its details while trusting what is true in its core.